technology, and so if my shirt comes untouched or something, clip-on tie, the whole thing. So, my name is trying to make it through life, but never learning how to do it. My name is Mike Alladay. I'm from Ave Maria Press in Notre Dame. I'm an editor there. I've been there. I'm going on my 20th year there as an editor of Adolescent Catechesis. Really enjoy the job. My previous 14 years, I was at a parish in Santa Monica, California. Did a lot of different things there. So if you add those two numbers together and you figure, like, when I got out of college, you try to figure out how old I am. So that's my entire work experience. So we're going to talk about applying the bishop's framework to parish situations. A few years ago when it first came out, the framework came out, we do mainly Catholic high school textbooks at Ave Maria, but we outline the framework courses by doing a handbook called Catholic Essentials. I'll show it at the end. It really kind of, I'm not really trying to do a commercial here, but it's how we got to apply for ourselves the bishop's framework to parish lives, because we wanted a little smaller book that go for parish, then we expanded it out for the larger book for Catholic high school. But back to the beginning. So I started in California, and it was a church called St. Monica. It's in Santa Monica. It's about 7 blocks from the ocean. Huge parish, kind of like this one, 8,000 families. And I came right out of college. I actually wanted to get into journalism, and so in the meantime, I ended up there coaching sports, the CYO sports, and doing those things. And it's a K through 12 school. So first I did junior high sports, and while I was there, one of the first days I met a guy named Father Lloyd Torgeson. He was in residence there, and he happened to be the director of religious education for the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. Ran the LA Congress that they have out there, like one of these events, and we became friends. And again, had no thought of ever getting into really religious education stuff, but we were friends. We'd go out to dinner here and there while I was coaching. About a year or two into that, he said, "Hey, why don't you try teaching? You've been here now. You're not. It doesn't look like you're going anywhere." So I did a couple years in school in the 8th grade classroom, taught religion and math. Again, he came back to me and said, "I like what you're doing with the religion classes. How about moving to the high school?" So did high school religion for a while, for about 4 years there as well, and enjoyed it. Really loved the kids. Continued to coach, those kinds of things. Well, then I left. And I went into publishing for the first time. I went to Benziger Publishing, did a couple of years there. And in the meantime, my friend, Father Torgeson, became the pastor of St. Monica's. He's still there, by the way. This is like 1987 when he became pastor. And once he became pastor, he said, "Hey, I want you to come back and be DRE." And DRE at that time meant everything from preschool to high school, including being the actual youth minister, not having someone under you, but doing the youth ministry program as well. And I had a lot of worries about the job, especially with the preschool and young kids. The one thing I didn't worry about as much was I was really looking forward to doing the youth ministry, because I figured I'd been working with high school kids all along. I was coaching some of these kids, and it would be a lot of fun to do. And it turned out for me that was the worst part of it all. It was awful. And also going from a friend to employer, kind of a rough transition, because he had a lot of expectations. And he said, "Hey, I've got the number." Basically, he told me it was like in the hundreds of teens in families in our parish, and they're not participating. We have a youth group of 30 kids that come every week, and some are in college. We want to move them on, want to get them out of here. I need a different model so more kids are participating. And here's what I really miss. I miss getting grades. It's easy to teach religion in a Catholic high school when there's grades, and the kid is going to suck up a little to get the A, and you got to do the work and all those kinds of things. Well, at a youth night to do catechesis, it doesn't work that way. So I miss that. So here's how it all started. Because I was trying to do well, it was a Sunday night kickoff for the September 1st thing. I did disband the youth group when I first got there. These kids were like 21 years old still in the youth group, Said, "Hey, you guys, let's move ahead." And so what I wanted to do was set up a thing where we would get as many kids as possible to come to this opening kickoff night. So in Santa Monica, they had the Catholic high school. They had about 3 public schools that fed in. some other Catholic high schools. Well, I went and got the quarterbacks from 3 of the schools that all happened to go to parish, the 2 public schools and the Catholic school quarterback. Hung up a tire like that, and I said, hey guys, I want you to come out. We're going to have a contest, chicken dinner. I'm going to bring a band in, and we'll see how many of you, who can throw the ball through this thing. But here's the deal. You've got to bring your friends with you. You got to bring like all the cool kids with you from your school, and you got to come to this thing. And they did this. Now, it was good because at the time, confirmation was at that grade level, which it still is actually. They had to do Christian service every night. I always hate to say this because it's bad, but they did like 50 hours or whatever. You had to do 50 hours for service. And I said, if you do this, it's probably only going to take you about 1 or 2 hours, but I'll sign off for like 20 hours. So anyway, I got a big group. This first night, I got a really, really big group. I had a band in. It was, I think, the number was something like 110 kids or something. And they were all packed out there. The music was loud. We had the chicken going, the whole thing. And 2 things happened, though. One is my friend, Father Torgerson, walked by and goes, how many you got here? And meaning kids. And I go, I don't know, count them up. We got to like, honey, said, there's more. And you're still missing more. I'm like, wow, all that work, and he's still going to be. That's the kind of expectations I have. And the other thing was, where was the religious lesson here? I was used to having a whole lesson plan, the whole thing. At the end of the night, I got up, grabbed the microphone from the band guy. It was one of those like real 1980s cheap speakers. Barely could say anything like, let's live in faith for the rest of the, like some weak little prayer. All that work, and that's all I got to do. Wow, it's not kind of what I signed on for. So this went on through the year. We had the Sunday gatherings, always about the numbers, getting the kids to come. I remember another one where, again, I taught there just recently, so, and I've been gone a couple years, but kids that I taught in like 9th grade were now seniors. And these 2 girls, Kathy and Lori, I still actually talk to them on Facebook, so I know they're still around. But they were in my 9th grade class, and they were best friends. Well, when I came back after a couple years, they were enemies. And I said, what happened to them? I was asking some of the other kids. Well, typical thing, Kathy had been dating this boy named Jesus, and now Lori was dating Jesus. And so Kathy and Lori weren't friends anymore. So just that's a little backdrop to the story. Midway through the year, there was this young guy who was just ordained a priest, Father Chuck Bard, and he came up to me and said, hey, you still doing these Sunday night things? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I want to do something on Sacrament of Penance this Sunday. I'm like, oh man, that's a nice idea, but like, how am I going to get kids to come to that? Really? And I go, I'll see what I can do. So I went to Kathy and Lori, used the Christian service angle again. Hey, I'll sign off on some hours. And I said, if you guys would come out and talk about, you can go separately, I've heard you've had some problems, go separately, talk about the differences that you've had, what it would take to reconcile with one another. Your arguments, those kinds of things, and you don't have to even see each other, I'll separate you out. Would you do that? They both agreed to do that. So Kathy came in first, did her talk, and I actually stayed outside and even listened because I was keeping Lori away from her. I was and now Kathy finishes her talk, and I guess though what she had said was, that I didn't hear, was she really missed Lori. They had been great friends growing up, and she wishes they could reconcile, they could get back together. And I kind of picked up the end of that, and I said, did you hear what she said, Lori? I said, why don't you guys, and so this all worked out. They actually hugged right there. The last part of the talk went together. They did their little reconciliation there. And after all that happened, Father Chuck came in with his notes and all the thing on how to do the Sacrament of Penance. And those kids are like glazed over. By that point, they'd already seen the main thing. But what I'm just saying is, like, this is the kind of work you had to do every single week to get people to come in order to do these lessons. I don't know, you guys have the same issues, whatever, but it was a challenge all through the couple of years that I did that in order. And you could get them to come out for a lot of things, like going to feed the homeless shelter, service events, those kinds of things. But the events that had catechesis in it were the tough ones. They were the tough ones to do. So there's a lot of challenges with it, and there's more. Just throw a few of these out here. There's so many different models of youth ministry. I'm on book publishing. We try to do programs, books. We In the 90s, when I first came, we did a whole series of mini courses for youth ministry. Did not sell well. And because there's so many different things going on. You got a youth group model. I see all the Life Team shirts in here. You have a Life Team model where you're doing different things. There's some places, including where I live, is where they'll take all the kids from the parish once or twice a year to the diocesan or deanery event, like a youth rally. And at that rally, there'll be workshops like this for the teens, and they'll call it good the rest of the year. Hey, we did our catechesis, we're done. We don't need to do any more the rest of the year. Check that out, right? And so that's one of the factors on the challenges for doing this in a parish. SSS, there's school, there's sports, there's social. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on. Kids are busy. What are you going to do to get them out there? And you know, what's funny is like, when you can get to the end of this, don't mark this on your evaluation. I'm not going to give you an answer like on how to get them to come out there. You know, there really is not a clear answer. Like I have a buddy who, he's a millionaire now, and he has a successful business on rentals, and he always tells me he goes out to UCLA and USC and gives talks to a business college. And I'm like, do you ever tell him that you made your original money as a gambler? And he goes, no, I always hope they don't ask that question. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of a key part of your story. So same thing with you guys here. Is like, you're going to get to the end like, yeah, but how do I get him to come? Well, okay, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to give you like the complete answer. I'll give you a couple ideas, but not the complete answer. So there's challenges with this thing. They're so busy. Then, you know, you got the confirmation. You guys, you know, I can tell you guys must do it in high school. Yeah. Confirmation. So, you know, they would say confirmation, you know, once they're done, you know, and the carrot that keeps them going and stuff. So I'll talk about that. I'll talk about some of these as positives in a second.
Is that a carrot or a stick?
Yeah. So, and then I put up Adams, Riley, Washington, St. Joe. Those are the high schools in my area. There's so many different, you got such a variety of kids. Those Catholic school teachers that teach Monday to Friday religion, it's a self-contained audience. They're all in the same school. They have the same goals, same objective. You got kids from all kinds, all different religious ed backgrounds. Some have never been to, you know, they call it CCD from K through 8 or whatever. Now they're coming into youth ministry. Some, you know, their parents are like the elite Catholics who've been training them well all the way through. They know everything. And you got them in the class too. And this is your group out there. How do you really decide to be who your audience is? And then there's this thing like the Plenty of Life to Go thing. This one kind of bugs me too a little bit. That, you know, we hear about lifelong adult education. I can tell this parish is set up to do that well, and it is. It's a great thing. But sometimes when you talk that way, then you forget about those kids in 9 through 12, giving them any catechesis, because you think they're going to catch this later on. They're going to get it later on, which, you know, they're going to get some of it later on. But you've got to give them some foundation now. You know, you can't just skip this 9 to 12 time and be like, I don't know, like, say, oh, eventually he's going to be an electrical engineer, scientist, so we're not going to do Algebra 1, Algebra 2 in high school years. Right? You've got to do some kind of core foundation at this point. You can't just skip it. And then, of course, there's always the lack of resources, we don't have any budget anymore to spend on stuff, we don't have a paid professional youth minister, we don't have those things. So these are the challenges that are in place in a parish now. But there's success, and a lot of them overlap with the ones you just mentioned. Okay, the youth group model, I might have tossed it out at the beginning, but if you have a youth group model and kids are coming every week on a regular basis, you're all set up to do catechesis. Hey, at least they're coming. I wouldn't throw it out these days, you know. So the youth group model isn't a good model to have. The other thing you can do with that is that you do have peers that are older, 12th grade versus 9th grade, 10th grade. Those older peers can help teach the younger ones. You can set up little small group, core groups, and those kinds of things. So it's a strength if it's going well. Back to confirmation. You know, why not use it? I don't know what grade you do confirmation. 10th grade. So definitely like in 9th, you know, up through 10th, you could, lots of prerequisite stuff, especially with the framework that we're going to talk about. You can cover some of those themes as prerequisites for eventually the proximate preparation for confirmation, focusing in on the rite of the sacrament itself. And then if you've really done well, like they like coming, and you create a community and social atmosphere to them to kind of bond, they're going to want to continue on. And you got like what is the mystagogy that, you know, the RCA process, you can continue that with confirmation. They're going to want to you can at least get another year out of it, can't you? After they've had a nice experience, they want to come back one more time for some more stuff. And then secret of success, you know, again, I saw those Life Teen shirts back there. You got to really give props to Life Teen, you know, for the years, the whatever amount of years that they've had, the success of a teen mass, really focusing around the liturgy, and then, you know, all the branch offs that you got. I don't know how you do it here, but I know you have the Life Nights right after, real opportunity for catechesis, and then usually during the week there's something. Remember, I was just telling someone I went down to Phoenix or Tucson, wherever they started, way back. When it first started, it was amazing thing to see just on a weekend. See the 1,000 kids at Mass, go to the Life Night, and the stuff they have, the outreach they had in the week, and the catechesis they had too. So if that's done well, I mean, Eucharist is central to everything. It's definitely going to draw people in. Here's a couple of unique ones, and this happened, I think, in Louisiana when I first heard about this. This woman, she came up to me and talked to me at a conference once, and said scholarships on there. And what she'd done was she went around the business to the business people in town and asked them to donate money to sponsor kids that were in the parish catechetical program. If the kid went, I think it was, if they went 1 year, completed 1 year, $500 scholarship to be applied to college. Second year, 1,000, third year, 1,500. So she got this kind of sponsorship, and of course she got participation. So if the kid finished off, the other thing I can say, so I don't forget it, is that you may not even need to do that, but if you develop some kind of certificate of completion for your program, the kids want it for their college application, their resume. You know, make it seem like something that's really gonna, and it will benefit them to have that thing. They can put it on their college application, the resume. You're going to write a letter of recommendation to them, and a little bit of more work, but it's something, another thing to help them, to get them in. You know, so giving you a few ideas. Again, nothing that's absolutely going to work, but some of these might. And then the other thing too, I'm always amazed at is that we sell the big books that go into Catholic high school. They're big books that I'm not even saying to use those with your students, but they are, because they're meant for an entire 5-day-a-week class in a Catholic high school. But we do have parishes that buy these, and I'm always like amazed. I'm like, so tell me, why did you just buy 200 of these morality texts that are meant for Catholic high school? I'm like, oh, well, we have religious education, and they come once a week. And I'm like, wait, you're talking about like sophomores and juniors, and they're still coming, sitting at desks and tables? Yeah. I'm like, well, how does that work? They never left that model. They kept that model. The pastor speaks about it. The parish parents speak about it, and there's a lot of family support. And the kids have just accepted it, and they made it something that it's normal to do. So if you have that, keep it. If not, maybe you can get it back. You know, with everybody pitching in and doing the same thing as well. So those are a couple of those things. More strengths. You know, the 4 basic catechetical elements. You know, from the youth ministry document many years ago. Community worship, service, and message. Just think how many that you do well already. I mean, most youth ministry programs do those first 3 really, really well. You know, you build community work, you know, among the kids in your group, and then also with the parish at large. There's worship, service is done well. Is the 4th one, like actually doing lessons and things, is the one that needs a little work usually. So one thing I'd suggest is that you incorporate those 4 elements into everything that you do, including the catechetical lessons. So, you know, you come out, the kids are going to come out for this night of catechesis. You know, you're not going to get up there like I'm doing now and just talk for an hour. You're going to want to have a lot of different things going on. So, like, take the community angle. You know, maybe you want to bring someone in. I know we did something on church history at one point, a lesson. And so we brought like some older people from the parish that have been around, like especially during the Vatican II changeover, and they talked about what the parish was like at that time. Hey, there was a lot of tension because we moved the altar. And so the kids heard from these older parishioners what was going on there, and then the lesson flowed, you know, finally into the message, talking more about maybe Vatican II that night. I don't remember. Okay, but you want to involve people in your lesson. There's definitely prayer. You always want to have prayer time during the thing, and good prayer, you know, stuff that make the kids run with music, things you run, and if you want to connect that theme of the prayer with the lesson itself. And then, service is more difficult, in a catechetical lesson, but it can always be modeled. I remember, again, in California, Santa Monica, this girl that lived, was just married. She lived, right down the street from her. Name was Shanetta, and she had spinal bifida, and so she was in a wheelchair. And real nice girl, but kind of always, calling too much, for favors. And, I should stop, because this favor is important, but there were others. She always wanted someone to drag her down the stairs and then come to the youth night. But then it became to do the other things, like go out with her friends. She wanted a lot of different things. And I didn't want to do it. I was 1 block away, and I did it a lot, but I didn't want to do it every single day. Meet her at 7 a.m. and take her down. I just didn't want to do it. So I will say the kids picked it up great, and they ended up coming up with a schedule. They brought her down in the morning for the bus, and they brought her to the class every night. So to me, service was incorporated in the lesson because Shanetta was not there. And the night she wasn't there were a couple. I'm like, did anyone get her? I'm like, no, we forgot to get her something. So there was that. There was another kid. Another kid with cystic fibrosis named John. He had a hard time communicating, and I always had a student sit right by him and talk to him. So model, and kind of translate what the thing was going on. So, that can be incorporated in what you're doing. And then finally, the message stuff is what we'll get to later, around the framework. But, you can incorporate those efforts right there. More positives, I'm going to kind of go quicker on this. The framework itself, I don't know how much you know about it, and I'm not going to survey to find out, but basically how this all came about was the groundwork was, I know a lot about it because I got to get the books approved for the framework. So this first came about when the Catechism was published in 1994. That was kind of the impetus to get this thing going. Around that time, Archbishop Daniel Beekline from Indianapolis sent out a statement talking about the deficiencies in Catholic high school textbooks. I don't think you were implicated back then. I really don't. At the time, the bishops were thinking of publishing their own catechetical series. They do it in Canada. They would be the publisher. They decided against that. If I saw all the work it would probably take. And so instead, they began to think about, we want to set up a framework, a curriculum for high school students. And I don't want to slip and say just Catholic high schools. It was always parish and Catholic high schools as well. They had one from K through 8. I mean, if you've done that, you can probably name in your head 5th grade sacraments, right? 6th grade Old Testament. You kind of think what the subject matter is for each grade if you ever taught those levels. You couldn't do that for high school. Most high schools had a similar curriculum sequence. They started by intro of faith, they moved into scripture, they had morality, but they did all kinds of different things as well. This is Catholic high school. They wanted a sequence, an exact sequence. So this is how this first came about. They sent out surveys to parishes, publishers around 2004 for input. Originally they had 8 required courses they wanted. They finally cut it back to 6 required courses with 5 electives in there on your handout. So talk more about them, but this is what came about here. And the thing I also like about it is that it was always so parish focused. I got kids. I have 4 kids. 2 of them one's sitting out there with me today, but he's the youngest one. But 2 of them, the first 2 did go to Catholic high school. The third one didn't. She went to the public high school, and so she wanted to do that. And so we said, well, you have to participate in your parish youth ministry program. And she did when she wanted to. She did when it was pizza night. She did when her friends would go. But we really wanted some catechetical focus. So this was in her years here, a couple years ago, when the adaptation for the parish framework sequence came out. And I really, kind of a life work, think that we miss so much. There's only a small sliver of Catholic kids that go to Catholic high school. We're missing that big group. And so I'm glad that the bishops have focused so much on them. And I want to say why I think this framework is focused for parish kids even more than Catholic high school kids anyway. I'll just give you a hint. Christology and Bible, and you can always be a friend with Jesus. That's always a common ground. And most parishes have a set of Bibles. So you can start running the thing as soon as you can. So I think that's a good thing. So 2010, books are now all this information that you can't probably see in the back is about how the book process goes and the secondary level protocol and approval of books and those kinds of things. So yeah, let me just put these on here. This is in my mind, the real strengths of this sequence of things. It's really Christological in focus. It's not just informational, it's formational, so you really want to become a friend with Jesus. It's not just spewing of information. I can give you one example. Like before, like if you're doing a scripture class, you're going to talk about how the Bible was created. You're going to look at, say, the Old Testament strictly from the focus of the Hebrew scriptures and how the Hebrew authors, no real looking back at the census of Scripture, Jesus' presence in the Old Testament, for example, and so on. And then in all the other classes, you can find his presence as well. So, in that first course, and I'll call them courses, but they're also called themes. In that first theme, you really want to know Jesus, his ancestors through the Bible. So that's a survey of the Bible, and Old Testament and New Testament. You want to learn about his family of faith, the tradition from Abraham to David and so on. Then you move into an actual looking at his life on earth. So course 2 or theme 2, and I want to kind of give you some little things like flashpoints. You think like, wow, how would I do this with the time element I have? Course 2 or theme 2 is really just a look at some of the key times in his life. You could focus on a gospel, particular gospel. You could focus on just parts of a gospel, something to get some information on what it was like for him in his earthly ministry. And then once you now cultivate this, begin to know him a little bit more, you want to know why this is essential and what he did for us. And so Catholic school, high school teachers really balked at this third one. The complete focus of that third theme is really around the Paschal mystery. So the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus and what that meant for us, redemption. So they originally said, what, I have to teach a whole semester, 5 days a week on that? And my simple answer would be like, hey, those events from Holy Thursday to Easter Sunday are like kind of the key events in the history of time, right? And I think you might want to spend some time on it. So that is that third theme. So once you have that background, then you move into you now have this relationship with Jesus, and your kid has this growing friendship, and it's like knowing the cool kid in school. Once you know the cool kid, you want to know, or any kid, once you become a friend with anyone, you want to now hang around his peer group. And so now you want to know Jesus' peers, which would be the church, which they're a part of. And then once that happens, you still want that relationship with him, even though he's not physically there. Well, where is he really present? In a lot of ways, but in 7 guaranteed ways, the sacraments. And so, I think my kid did give me this tie at one point. They always joke to give me these clip-ons. Nice gift, but the gift that really makes an impression is that little handprint from preschool that my oldest daughter gave me when she was like 4 that I still have in my office at work, because she really put herself into that. I can really remember, and every time I see it, I think back to those times. And this thing, I don't even know which kid gave it to me. So, those gifts of the sacraments, he really, really is present. And you can, that'd be a thing to emphasize there. And then once all that happens, then they want to live like Jesus. They want to behave like him. So then you lead into this morality course at the end of the 10 Commandments, Beatitudes. And then it cycles back into the mission of sharing that same message with others. So, people used to say, like, the bishops, they didn't take input from here and there and these people in order to put the sequence together. I think the Holy Spirit had a real influence on this. I think it's a real natural progression, and it really works well. And so I just always like to give them props on that. So that's kind of an introduction and to all that. And now kind of how to do it. And I left you this thing, don't try to read that, it's in there. There's 25 different ways, of doing catechesis and parish reporting, which I think the Rochester guys did a program in the 90s called Delta Faith. We modeled it. We had parishes do the Paris model for it, and it sold enough to say that it did work. And when this framework came out, I thought we need to bring that back. And so I did a little webinar on this about like a year or two ago. And you know, I don't know how it works, but the technology person was taking questions during this webinar. And a guy, I'm not going to call his name out, but he's a big wig in the diocesan world of church life. And he was on this question thing, and she said later, who is this guy? He kept coming on here asking really bad questions. And so I ended up emailing him at the end. I said, hey, what was going on? Like, people couldn't get a question. He's like, you should not present that model as the model of catechesis for youth ministry. I'm like, I wasn't. It was like just one model. So it's funny though, after that happened, I've been like a lot of different places just talking about this thing. So went like one day in his own diocese to a parish and came. So it's just one model. I'm not trying to give you like the main thing. It's not a national model or anything. One choice for doing this. And it's a trimester approach of doing little mini courses and themes. So let me just tell you about it real quickly. Basically what you would do is set up your year in trimesters. And the model is intended to call for 9th through 11th grade. How would you cover all the themes of the framework from 9th to 11th grade? Now the real industrious kid, if you let them, could get this done in 2 years as well. So we should have them through 10th grade. I'm not worrying about the senior level kids. Okay, you can keep them involved as peer ministers or whatever. But let's talk about 9th through 11th grade. So there's 3 trimesters a year. What do we say? There's 6 required themes. So 3 times 3 is 9, right? They would only have to go to 6 out of the 9 in order to get this thing taken care of. And the industrious kid might be able to do it if you offer all 6 themes in 2 years. But most kids have other stuff going on, right? So they got like sports and all that other kind of stuff. They're not going to be able to do, the kid playing football is not going to be able to do this first one. So here they are. It's 3 8-week trimesters. The first one's fall, October, November. The second one is January, February. The third one's April, May. So the kid playing football, he just takes off now. So you're not bugging him, you're not calling his house. How come he's not here at the class? He's supposed to be in it. We have these requirements. He doesn't have to. Okay, and then the girl or boy that's doing the play in the spring at the school, has to practice all spring. She doesn't want to do the spring one, so she can skip that one. You only have to get 6 out of the 3 years, so 6 out of 9. You can take them off. Now, let's say that you're offering, let's say 4 themes. Themes 1, 2, 3, and 4, all in one of the trimesters. Could a kid do themes 1 and 3 together in one and get ahead? That's up to you. And like now, I want to say like there is a sequence that the bishops recommend, but there's not enough going on in catechesis right now. I wouldn't worry about that. Us personally, I wouldn't worry about the sequence. I would just try to get them to do all 6 eventually. All 6 eventually. Not worrying about having to go through the sequence. That's my suggestion. Okay, so there's your trimesters, and then there'd be 2 4-week interterms. 1 in December and 1 in March. Now that's usually a good thing because you're busy during those times anyway. There's Advent and then there's Lent, and you got other stuff going on sometimes. You might have, Stations of the Cross, Living Stations of the Cross in Lent, penance service retreats, Advent. You have a giving tree at your parish, all those things. So you want to take a little break from that time for doing actual catechetical program. And the other thing too, before you start going on, I'm already not going to do this because we've got a different model going on. You can run your own model, the same model, youth group, life team, still doing this thing, okay? Still doing it this way as well. You can think outside the box on that. And then you have August, September. August, planning orientation. Look at August, you're here for something like this. You bring all of the people that are going to do your classes to something like this. September's Catechetical Sunday, you have that. June, July, I didn't put it on there, but there's stuff for youth ministry, I'm sure. You're not on a 10-month schedule, you might not be. You have summer trips, summer camps, work camps, social things that go on in the summer. So that's how the year is laid out. So back to the 8 weeks. Okay, so let's just work with October and November. It's in 8 weeks. In 8 weeks, you're trying to cover that theme in basically 180 minutes. Okay, so 180 minutes they owe you over those 8 weeks. I've got it divided in 3 ways. There are probably others. Let me talk about these 3 ways. First one would be to just do 2 3-hour sessions, okay? Covering a theme in 2 3-hour sessions. So you can imagine like maybe a Sunday from 1:30 to 4:30, or a Wednesday night 7 to 10, first week of the month, okay? The kid only has to come out with that. Now, we're talking about 9th through 11th graders. Most of them don't drive yet, some of those early ones. Parents would appreciate that and give me some pluses on it, because they only have to come twice. Bring it out, they get to go off and do something, have dinner with their spouse, during that 3 hours instead of driving, coming right back. So there's some pluses like that. The other plus with the 3-hour version is that you have time to do stuff. You want to have like a long prayer service in the middle, you know, with music and the whole thing. There's time to do that. There's time to break out with discussions and small groups, and it gives you really time to plan a lesson. So there's a strength. Now I know 3 hours is a long commitment for some people, kids and catechists, so not for everybody. The point is to offer variety to these kids who are busy and have a lot of different schedules. And if they can't do that kind, maybe they can do the other model. Another possibility, again, 180 minutes over 2 months, 4 90-minute sessions. So, yes? I'm multiplying on, aren't I? Yeah, 360, sorry. So it is 360. So cut everything about 180 and just go back to 360. Yeah, 360. So 2 3-hour sessions is 360. They're all 360. Thank you. So 4 90-minute sessions. So that'd be every other week for the 2 months. Okay? And that might be like a Wednesday or Tuesday, 7:30 to 9, something like that. Again, it gives you more time rather than just the 1 hour that they're coming out, getting in, messing around for a little bit, and they have to leave. Parents are out in the parking lot waiting for them. So that gives you more time. But people do like the 1 hour time frame. Some volunteer catechists maybe make it easier for them. Also, for especially life team type people, the 1 hour sessions work really well right after Mass. Like, let's say you have 9:30 Mass on Sunday, gets out at 11 and around 11. You could do 11 to 12 for the 1 hour session, and you have 6 of those. And like, so it's 8 weeks, 6 1 hour things. You think like, well, how would did I go 6 in a row and stop for a 2-week break at the end? Well, I would make it like, I would look at their school schedule and say like, hey, that week's homecoming, that week they got something going and I'm going to miss a lot of kids, and schedule it that way. So in advance, you're able to schedule it that way. So, and then this is how it kind of looks like, you know, that paper's on, I think it's in your handout. But, so here's theme 1, you know, like this is theme 1 was the overview of the Bible, basically. And so that's that model where you're doing it 3 times, right after Mass, 11 to 12. Now on that same Sunday, you're doing one of those 3-hour sessions. Okay, so there's core class, theme class 4, that would be church. So you're doing your class on church on Sunday afternoon, just once a month. You know, let's say the liturgy's there, some of you have it every week. And then over here, there's core class 2. That's the one on the Gospels and the life of Jesus. That's on a Wednesday from 7:30. That means twice a month, so you have the next month doing the same thing as well. And look, at the same time, you're doing core class 3, also a 90-minute class. So that's the one on the Paschal Mysteries. So again, you know, the kid's trying to get ahead. Maybe you got one kid taking the core class 1, he's also in core class 2. I don't know if you want to have them do 2 at one time. That would be up to you. But another point on the schedule would be look and see how you can do other things as well. You still have your service activities, you know, the Walk for Life, the Catholic Worker House. You have a fundraiser for your haunted house. And you have confirmation class too, if you want. You know, now this might be the kids that are going to be confirmed in the spring, so they're in the final stretch. They've already done these core classes in the other year, and now they're in the final stretch, so you're doing your confirmation class as well. There's an open gym night as well. I put youth council. If you have a youth group, that might be called youth group. Whenever it meets, they can still meet. Youth council would be more of a teen advisory panel that could give you input on all this and how it's going, and kind of be your mini parish council for kids, you know how to work that. And then you can, you know, do these things in any format. I mean, so when you come into this, like, how am I going to announce Bishop putting out this new sequence of classes? It can still be in youth group format. You know, they can sit around on the floor and do these things. You can still do icebreakers and paint the toes. There's still prayer. I think I skipped one. I wanted to show that you could do it around tables, which I would like. I mean, you can have a set of tables, but it's easy to arrange in small groups. So there's plenty of ways to do it. And then, you know, you have parish missions at your parish sometimes. Like, let's say the guy comes out, your parish has paid a lot of money for this adult program, and it's going to be involving scripture or something, and you can, it's almost like your kids could audit that mission and come and get some credit related to some themes that you put out based on the bishop's framework. Say, hey, I want you to look for this, and I want you to write a little essay here. So now they're getting credit for that theme 1 part of your program. You're getting a certificate at the end based on that. Or your pastor, somebody is a scripture expert, and they're going to do a Bible study for adults and say, I'd like my group of 10 kids who signed up for this theme this time to come to that adult class and do that. So it's another way to cover one of these themes. We did something like this at one point, but think if you were doing something on sacraments and you wanted them to really focus in on the Eucharist. You're learning the parts of the Mass, the different names of the parts of the Mass, different character of Masses at different parishes. Maybe on a Sunday, you know, you're in that 3-hour time block, you do a little introduction, and now you say, hey, for this week we're going to ride our bikes actually to the neighboring parish, and we're going to go to a Mass in Spanish. We're going to go to a traditional Latin Mass that they have really around. And so you can, you know, 1 week you can go back and forth. Again, just giving you some different ideas on, it's not always a structured class, you know, to do catechesis. And then, I don't know if you've heard of the Khan Academy. You heard of that? Anybody? Yeah? So, you know, what that is, a guy who has set up all these YouTube videos. Basically, he started out by doing math problems. And so basically every math problem is on YouTube, a little short video. And so the kid watches this problem, and now education's reversed. They know how to do the problem, and now they come to class already when who's having difficulty. So could you do that as well? Could you set up, I put one on here, but I'm not going to click it because the internet was slow when I tried it before. But the religion teacher, a friend of mine who actually worked with, Jared Dees, has a website called that. He's put out these little small little YouTube vignettes on lots of religious things. So could you set up a little mini online class on one of these themes where kids have to do 6 themes? Well, could one option be an at-home online version? They have to watch some of these little presentations that you've done in the summer. You created this 360 minutes? I think so. We got to get to some around those minutes where they watch these videos, and now they do some kind of handout for you, and they turn it in. So that's another thing, another way to do it as well. All right. So that's the model. I'm done with that model thing. So that's 20. You know, there's 25 of them on the list. That's one option. Doing it in a trimester format. There are other ways to do catechesis as well. Now, I was also asked to talk a little bit about aware of time. Watching it. I'll go a little quicker here. Those themes themselves. This is the first one, and I've given you some lessons here. So again, I already talked about a little bit, but it's really a survey of the Bible. And it's the Bible from the perspective of Jesus as Savior, His family, and the Messiah coming and being announced in the New Testament. One way to always kind of begin it is to talk about the infancy narratives. There's 2 of them. Kids might not know that. Take the Bible and say, hey, go and trace and check off which of the Matthew or Luke you find these elements. Shepherds, Herod, angel, Simeon, manger, etc. You know, put an L for Luke, an M for Matthew. Let them do that as an opening exercise. And then give them some background on the differences between those 2 Gospels related to the infancy narratives. You know, that Luke was written for Gentiles and Matthew was written for Jews, Jewish Christians, and show them how they can determine that. You know, basically like why Joseph took his family and went into Egypt, and, you know, because that's what Moses did. And, you know, why Jesus' family brought turtle doves as an offering, because they were poor, and they were trying to show that all the poor in the rest of Luke's gospel are welcome to hear this good news. So give them a little background, and that's your presentation that you would handle. And then the next worksheet is then let them lead that column off on the more information. I just gave you some answers there. Or maybe I didn't. Oh, sorry. I'll send anything I don't have on here to you, but they would they make a hypothesis statement, and then you would provide the notes for more information. So I'll give you just one there. You already did that Moses one. Oh, why does Matthew's genealogy trace to Abraham and Luke's to Adam? Well, based on what you've already told them, Abraham's the founder of the Jewish family, and Adam the founder of the entire human family. So they would now begin to note these differences based on the audience this gospel is intended for, and also make the connection with what they've already learned, from the Old Testament. You've already done some. This would be kind of a midway lesson point. All right, again, I'm going faster. Who is Jesus Christ? That's the second theme. So again, focus around the gospel. Focus around one of the gospels or one of the elements of the gospels. One lesson could be around the parables of Jesus, the teachings of Jesus, the miracle stories of Jesus. So I always like to do this one because if you look at his miracle stories, they follow this pattern. There's a problem, and then Jesus handles the problem, and there's a reaction. Peter's mother-in-law, she had a fever. Jesus handled the problem, and then she waited on them and fed them. So there was a reaction. This one, cleansing of a leper. Man has leprosy. Jesus said, be made clean. And then the man went out and told people what he did. So there's always a reaction. So you could have them then give a whole other list of miracle stories, have them go and see if they can find that pattern. I always like to do this real fast, kind of wake you up a little bit. Okay, math. You ready to do some math? Okay, think of a number between, this is all Simon. Think of a number between, a single-digit number between 1 and 9. Okay? Have your number. Multiply that number by 9. You have a 2-digit number. Add those 2 digits together. Okay? You have a single-digit number. Subtract 5 from your single-digit number. You have a new single-digit number. Okay. Apply a letter to that new single-digit number. So A is 1, B is 2. Okay? You have a letter. Okay. Think of a country that goes with that letter. Okay. Now, think of an animal that goes with the second letter of your country. Okay? Right? Anybody come up with Denmark elephant?
Yes.
Man, wow. That's good. Okay. Now, your reaction. Hey, your reactions. So some of you went, oh wow, I heard this before. I've been a youth minister. Some found that completely confusing because of the math. And some were amazed. I did this for my little son on the way down. He was amazed. He's like, man, you should go on America's Got Talent. And then some of you just like, hey, it's like 5 minutes ago. That's too much for me. And those are kind of, then you can connect that with what they know in the miracles. Those are some of the same reactions people had to Jesus' miracles, Too much for them, They were amazed. The same thing. So you got a little youth ministry kind of tie in there as well. The Pastoral Ministry course. Okay, again, I think it's the most essential course. I put a picture of me a few years ago because I went to my 35-year high school reunion, never been to anything involving high school in all the years since, but I did go back a couple years ago, and I saw these people that, were good friends way back, Little League friends. It was a really good experience. Including this guy, that's me, and there's a guy on the left, Brad Risa, is like one of my best friends back in grade school. And he's had such a rough life, I didn't know. All the things that had happened to him, he'd been through a divorce, and just lots of other things, and illness. And, isn't that about all our pattern, the life, the little death, little resurrection cycle? It's what we all have to go through, and as kids go through it as well. And to understand that it's tied in with the pastoral ministry of Jesus, really gives it some work. And so I think this course is something, this theme is something that they really resonate with. Like there's so many examples of it. And again, I'm going a little quicker. These sessions ideas I can send you, but I wanted to kind of, this one is probably a good thing to skip, but this is like the 6 1-hour versions of this. You want to break into it slowly. You want to talk about sacrifice. You want to do, so that class could be just in general, talk about people come in, a little hour theme on different forms of sacrifice. And then more meaty stuff in session 2 on what led to this, the fall and the consequences, the terms that they're going to need, original sin, mortal sin, redemption. And then, of course, 3 would be kind of now we're working our way back through the life of Christ, the proto-evangelium. God promised a Savior right from the beginning, that He would send His Savior right from the book of Genesis. And then And then leading into, they've already talked about the Old Testament, so how people that they learned about in the Old Testament connected with this pattern in life. They had tragedies as well, Ruth and David, and even St. Joseph himself, and you can invite an older parishioner there, right? That's that one I was talking about, but talk about some of their own life. And then finally, talk about, focus in on one of those passion stories from the Gospels. I love Mark's Gospel. It really is just a short introduction, and then it's a long passion narrative in Mark. Really focus in on that and the meaning of discipleship. Jesus predicts 3 times what are going to happen to him. They never really get it, do they? Finally at the end they do. There's 2 of them want to still be sitting in his right and left, but 10 are mad at those 2 for asking that. So finally they understand that Jesus came to serve, not be served. So you can tell them about that, and then lead into the thing on He's risen. Lesson on that I have on here, just looking at the accounts of the resurrection. So there's that one, and then even beyond that, again, kids know this pattern of life, death, life. They're disappointed they didn't get into the school they wanted. They wanted to go to Notre Dame, and they ended up at Georgia Tech. They lose a football game on Friday, and then they have to bounce back and practice on Saturday. Those kids, there's pregnancy, and it's so desperate, but then things do somehow work out. And then you probably all have been around kids that there's death, there's suicide, or there's a car accident, and how negative that experience is, but how much life can be brought out from it, when you actually minister with the kids over that. So they know that. The framework for that course has all these questions that have to do with the most important questions in life, so you can bring those out and answer those questions for them. The most important question of all, why would God allow his son to die? And it's for the love of us, in John 1 it says that. There's 3 plans. I didn't put this in there, so I don't have to go through it in detail, but I'll just say that, there's 3 plans that you could talk about. There's human reasons that Jesus would put to death. Judas won 30 pieces of gold or whatever it was, silver, I guess. And Pilate had some issues, so he was put together for those reasons. Jesus had his own reasons as well. He was trying to follow his Father's will, and then God, the Father, had reasons for our salvation. So if you can tie those in, and I have this for you if you want to email. I'm going to skip it now, but those are just what I just said, some scripture examples of that. And I'll definitely send that to you if you want it. The theme on church, I would focus on these models of church. We talked about the church's community and sacrament, things that they know. There is a lesson in there that they go through and mark those models. It's in your papers. And then you award them points based on the scale in those points. And then at the end, you ask them if they had $50,000 to award that $50,000 to some organizations there. And based on that, you add those numbers up. You can give them an additional point. That's the direction. And then they can determine what model is most central to their life. And then you can do something, little definitions of the model yourself. You can watch this film or another film on the church and have them pick those models out. Now that they know about them, you know about Father Barron's film, I'm sure. Sacraments, that's the 5th theme. We already talked a lot about it. I wouldn't go through all 7 at that age. They're going to tell you immediately we've already had those. I mean, you might. But I would focus on these subtopics, like they love hearing the history of the sacrament of initiation. For example, if they're making their confirmation in 10th or 11th grade, they want to know why the kid at that other diocese or parish gets to do it in 2nd grade, or why the kid that just is new to the church has already got all 3. They want to hear the differences in that. So there's something you could do there. Anything on the Eucharist would be appreciated. Encouraging them to go to the sacrament of penance, maybe making a commitment during the time they're in the class to go a couple times. And then you could do a vocations panel related to the sacraments of holy orders and merit, and also, of course, consecrated life and committed single life. You have people represented from each part of your theme there. Morality is, of course, an essential class. This is from the General Directory, this quote on why it is essential. But there are challenges because they come to you with these things. They, probably the most central one being the last one on there, moral relativism, where anything goes, and so you have that type of kid coming in where they want to argue with you, debate you on those kind of things. And my suggestion there is, basically you want to cover the 10 Commandments and the Beatitudes according to the framework. But be to use love as your point of entry. You want to appeal to their sense of justice and fair play. You want to focus on morality being likened to loyalty to a friend. They're very loyal to their friends. So you want to talk about morality in that structure of loyalty and fidelity to these church teachings and these kind of general rules of divine revelation. And then definitely you want to share your acceptance of all of it. So no matter what they're telling you about their lifestyle, you want to still be able to love them. And then this is kind of my wrap-up, so I'll get you done. Wow, that's good. I'm going to make it, I think. This is from Frank Mercadante, a youth minister par excellence from Cultivation Ministries. And here's some things that he emphasizes from this acronym. First of all, in anything you do, emphasize interaction, not like I've done for the last hour. You have to have people talking back and forth with you. There's those 4 catechetical elements that we mentioned: community, worship, service, and message. You want to incorporate those, but also film and icebreakers and movement and all that kind of stuff. You're good at that. Better than me, because you guys are doing it. Okay. That would also tie in with, of course, that diversity of learning approaches. You want to use their life experience. You know, a long time ago I had a kid play the drums, and I knew him, Charlie Moffitt, and I wanted him to come out and come to the session. And I did one of those things where I was going to do something, let's just call it the 10 Commandments. So, hey, I'm going to give a lesson on the 10 Commandments. I want you to sit up with your drum set and like do like one of those, you know, what are those called? Riffs? So after I did the 10 Commandments, this guy just sat there and did one of these, and I had like, he was an older kid.
Please make your way up the stairs to the side of
Anyway,
Bishop Hall.
he did this little thing there. It kind of like drew attention to what I was doing. Content moderation. You don't have to do everything. Talk about lifelong learning. That's a good thing. They'll get it later on. It has to be applicable to real life. Threefold response. Hands, hearts, and mind. You always want to have its frameworks about formation and not just information. And then finally, probably most importantly, it has to be environment and concern. You have to like kids. If you're in here in this room, you don't want to work with teens, you don't like teens, you don't like kids, out of there. And if you keep that the rest of your ministry, then you're in good shape. And I think, you know, I've done that. I love those kids. I feel envious of you that you work with them all the time. That's it. That's in a rush. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the day.